I'm an only son and my mom died of ovarian cancer at only 55 5 years ago. It broke my dad's heart. They had been together since college and were the same age, with my dad being a month older. I'm 22, and am about to graduate from college with my degree in chemistry when the main events start to occur. I went to college on a full-ride scholarship. This is important later. My dad met my now stepmom when she was my mom's nurse at the hospital where she spent her final days. My stepmom, Emily, played all the right notes to gain my dad's trust. She was empathetic to him, nurturing, and comforting after my mom passed. I was 17 and old enough to sense that she was just trying to weasel her way into getting my dad's resources, but it was up to my dad if he wanted to be in a relationship with her. I was in my final year of public school and had just won a scholarship to attend college out of the country the following year. My dad mourned my mom for a year, and that whole time Emily would check in on him by phone every month or so, in my opinion, to scope out the possibility of sinking her hooks in him. After a year had passed since my mother's death, Emily took the gloves off. She stopped pretending to be the sweet, casual friend who just happened to check in on my dad once in a while. She went hard after him strategically, confidently, and with alarming precision. Emily was 40 at the time, but she carried herself like she was still in her early 30s. She had this particular kind of charm, the kind that knows it's working. She dressed immaculately, always smelling faintly of expensive perfume and mystery. She laughed just a bit too loud at my dad's dry jokes, brushed her hand on his shoulder just a little too often, and somehow always found herself sitting next to him at dinner parties, even when it didn't make sense. I didn't like her. From the beginning, there was something off. She was too polished, too poised. The kind of woman who said things like, "Oh, I'm just here to help him heal," while simultaneously reorganizing his entire schedule and slipping photos of them together into frames around the house. But in our Scandinavian household, sons don't tell their fathers what to do. We don't confront, we don't question. We observe. And from what I observed, my dad seemed lighter. Not quite happy, but at least no longer drowning in grief. He had started smiling again. Eating again. Watching his weight and wearing nicer clothes. I figured if she could bring him out of the fog, I should try to give her the benefit of the doubt, even if every fiber of my gut told me something wasn't right. Emily was from the Czech Republic, and she played the outsider card brilliantly. Whenever my aunt raised an eyebrow or my cousins grew distant, Emily would smile sweetly and say, "Oh, I think it's just cultural differences. Maybe I come on too strong." It disarmed people. She was always ready with tea, pastries, a story about her simple life back home, and just enough self-deprecation to seem humble, though she wasn't. My father was what most people would call comfortably wealthy. He wasn't a billionaire with private jets, but he lived a life that most could only dream of, and made sure everyone around him knew it. As a regional banking executive with nearly 3 decades under his belt, he built a reputation for being sharp, strategic, and intimidating in the boardroom. By the time he was 50, he had his name on plaques at charity golf tournaments and alumni halls at his old university. He wasn't the type to flaunt wealth recklessly. He was calculated. He invested smartly, saved aggressively, and always reminded us that nothing matters more than financial security. That security, in his world, translated to a sprawling 5-bedroom home in a gated community and a perfectly curated stock portfolio that he checked every single morning with his coffee. His cars? Nothing outrageously flashy, but certainly high-end. A new Lexus every few years, and later, a black Mercedes SUV. For practicality, as he'd say. Our house had a grand staircase, a formal dining room, and a backyard big enough for garden parties and graduation celebrations. He had a man cave outfitted with leather chairs, a mini bar, and a wall-mounted screen larger than life. Within 6 months of dating, my dad, a man who spent 30 years married to my mother, who once said he'd never even look at another woman again, proposed to her. How did she pull it off? Step by step. She started with his routines. She brought him vitamins, then started booking his doctor appointments. "He's so forgetful," she'd say with a playful tap on the arm. Then it was managing his mail, his calendar, even coordinating his lunch meetings with old friends, until suddenly she was the one replying on his behalf. Next came the emotional hooks. She cried when talking about her lonely childhood. She complimented my mother endlessly, while subtly pointing out all the ways she was now making his life easier. "I would never try to replace her," she said once, "but maybe I can help him enjoy life again. Isn't that what your mother would want?" I hated how effective it was. My dad never really got over my mom, though, and he was getting weaker and weaker even though he was only 58. Since his health was fading, he called me to him and asked me point blank, "Boy, what do you need to set you up in this life?" I told him I don't need anything. I'm a man and can take care of myself. "But what are you even talking about, Dad? You're going to be around for decades yet." I did remind him that he had living sisters with children, my aunts and cousins. I also reminded him that I had a full scholarship to college, so don't worry about giving me any cash. He was dead only a year later at 59. I, of course, have seen lots of Hollywood movies, so I consider the conspiracy theory that maybe my dad's nurse wife poisoned him and made him sign over all his money to her, but I really honestly do not think that's what happened. Other relatives didn't like Emily either, but they knew my dad was totally in love with my mom and that her death utterly broke him. Well, long story short, my dad bequeathed his 5-bedroom house to me even though I wasn't expecting it and didn't ask for it. He gave a small endowment to each of his sisters and their children. He left about 80% of all his existing money to Emily, which amounted to several hundreds of thousands of dollars. My dad ignored me because he's generous to a fault and still gave me several $100,000, which were of course very useful to me. Emily tried to put on a friendly front, but I could tell she was angry as hell that she didn't get my dad's house too. That belonged to me, and I had the legal papers to prove it. She was especially mad because we live in an extremely upscale and trendy location, and houses are hard to come by and easily sold for massive profit. In the months following my dad's death, grief hung in the air like mildew. The house felt hollow. Not just from his absence, but from the echo of what it used to be before Emily filled it with her polished lies and fake sentimentality. At first, Emily played the grieving widow role like she was auditioning for an Oscar. She wore all black, walked around the house barefoot like a lost soul, and would sigh dramatically any time someone mentioned my father's name. But it didn't take long before something darker began to seep through her facade, and I was the first to see it. She started getting close. Uncomfortably close. It began with little things, brushing past me in the hallway and letting her hand linger on my arm, or sitting a bit too near on the couch when we were watching TV. Once, I was fixing a drawer in the kitchen, kneeling on the floor, and she stood behind me, just a little too close for comfort, and said softly, "You're so much like your father, so strong." I froze. Another time, she brought me a glass of wine late at night, uninvited, and sat on the edge of my bed wearing nothing but one of my father's old button-down shirts, barely buttoned. "I get so lonely in this big house," she whispered. "Don't you?" I pretended I didn't hear her. I picked up my phone and started fake texting, just to create distance. She stayed there for a moment, watching me. Then, without a word, she stood and walked out. But not before she let her fingers glide across my shoulder on the way out the door. I felt sick. She still stayed at the house though, because over the last 3 years she had gotten used to living there and acting like she owned it. And, even though I officially owned it, I was always away at college and only visited my dad's old house once every couple of months, and even then it wasn't to see Emily, but to see my cousins who lived just a few miles away. I downplayed the fact that it was really my house, and over the months I think Emily gradually forgot that she really had no legal right to the house. She probably believed that sooner or later, because I never asked her for any of the hundreds of thousands of my dad's dollars that she now had, that I was somehow independently wealthy and would just give up my house to her. I knew I'd eventually hydrogen bomb this bitch when she started dating some new guy only 5 months after my dad was in the ground, and one time when I came home from college after graduating, she and her new boyfriend, some sleazy-looking D-bag named Ivan, who was only a few years older than me, were acting like I was a guest in my own house and that they owned it. I played along. Emily told me she gave away my PlayStation 4 to Ivan's cousin because I'm too old to play with video games. I don't even know this motherfucker, and you give him my PS4 to give away to some other SJT, who I also don't know. I quickly changed all my network passwords that same day. I smiled, but I knew what I had to do eventually. She also said that she and Ivan were getting married because I just can't mourn your father forever. I have to move on with life. I tell her that I graduated from college and already secured employment with a local firm, and will soon find a new place to live. She looks thrilled. Especially the part where it looks like I'll soon have a new place to live. Then in a patronizing way, she tells me, "You always have a place in our house though. You are welcome to stay whenever you please." Thanks, Emily, really generous of you. What I really mean is that I will probably have a new place in 3 months. She says that it is wonderful because she intends to go to her homeland to have a wedding with Ivan and afterward have her honeymoon. She assures me it's a local affair, otherwise I'd invite you, honey. And anyway, I know you're so busy. I congratulate her. She asks me if I can watch the house for her. Watch my own house? Sure. What I really mean is, of course, I will take care of the house. I am careful not to say your house. She and her D-bag fiancé, who I am 100% sure is only there for Emily's money, go on their trip and I immediately put out advertisements in rental websites offering to lease my house. I hired movers and have all of Emily's furniture and possessions boxed up and put into a storage rental facility. I retain all of my parents' furniture that they had before my dad met Emily. Locks, changed, all of them. Within days, I am inundated with dozens of inquiries regarding my amazing, furnished house with fantastic views. I rent it to a wonderful young family. A barrister and his schoolteacher wife and their 2 preteen children. They pay me their first and last month's rent, and sign a lease for a year. I warn them about my crazy stepmom who thinks this is her house, but I present them with contact information to my lawyer, the same lawyer my dad retained, in case they need any assurance that I'm on the level. I also give my lawyer the information about the storage facility, including the fact that I generously paid 4 months of storage in advance, which is a whole month longer than Emily's Czech honeymoon adventure. I then found a great apartment in the city near my new place of work. There I met a woman in a restaurant I frequent at night after a long workday. We have been dating for 6 months now and are engaged to be married. Emily, of course, tried to shriek and cause trouble when she realized she got kicked out of my house, but my lawyer quickly shut her mouth without my having to ever speak to her garbage face again. From what I hear, her and her trash husband left the country and I assume they're blowing through my dad's money and will soon be broke like shavs usually become when they taste a little bit of what they think is the good life. So maybe Emily will go and try to exploit some other lonely man into giving her his money. Speaking of money, the house that I rent out is generating so much money that I not only am able to help pay for my cousin's college, but I moved into a larger apartment of my own, together with my fiancé. I love my job, but really, I could survive solely on renting my dad's old house. And to think, if Emily had only been cooler and nicer, I might have let her stay at the house, just to be a good sport. And definitely if she stayed the hell out of my room. But no, she had to act all proprietary, so I had to make her homeless as a wedding gift. P.S. I bought another PS4, even though I didn't even use my old one that much. It didn't matter. It wasn't for Emily to give away. You don't give away other people's things. You give away your own things. Which is why I chose to kick Emily out of my house. Because it's mine, and I decide who stays there.